Joining us on set this morning, the CEO of the Trinidad and Tobago Chamber of Industry and Commerce, Ms. Kumar, and also the Minister of National Security. His ministry received the second largest allocation in the budget. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Good morning to Trinidad and Tobago.
Morning as well.
Maybe we can start with you. Your thoughts on what was presented yesterday. The Chamber obviously presented a wish list to the Minister. Any surprises?
Well, let me firstly say that we were pleased generally with the budget and the presentation. In particular, I think the theme, stimulating growth, that aspect of the theme, generating prosperity, was a good theme for the budget because we've all been talking, particularly in the private sector, of the need to stimulate growth. And even though there has been a talk why the private sector is not investing, there really was a need for stimulation, and a lot of that came in the budget. Some of the things we had, and mind you, we kind of moved away from saying we have a wish list, right? And we prefer to say we have a new policy, a new policy direction, right? Changes in how we'd like to see the administration work. But we were satisfied that some of our recommendations did come.
What was not included? What was
not included? I think taking some of our recommendations far enough. For instance, in the fuel subsidy, there's a heavy cost to the nation, you know, the $4 billion. We started off, and the first hit was the premium gasoline, as you mentioned. That's going to be insignificant, really, as far as the impact on the subsidy. I fully understand what the minister said initially, though. He has to take into consideration inflation, the cost of doing business, because if he attacked diesel in any way now, this is going to have a multiplier effect and flow down onto businesses. But at the same time, I think because we had been talking and we as a chamber have been presenting recommendations on the reduction of fuel subsidy for more than this year, that they would have been further advanced by now to bring something a little more comprehensive at the budget presentation, rather than only mention that the the premium subsidy will be reduced and that they will be setting up the committee to look at it. So we were a little disappointed on that a lot more hadn't been done in that area.
Now, we spoke about the disappointment. Maybe we'll get to the pluses of the budget. But
yes.
Minister, your ministry received the second largest allocation. Some say it's the first time in history. You asked for $4 billion and received $5 instead.
I think it's well deserved, based on the kind of initiatives which we have been discussing. Some have been announced in the budget yesterday, and some I will do on Friday. But let me correct something very early, what seems to be out there, that gasoline has gone up. And you said quite rightly, premium gasoline has gone up. Premium gasoline is used by 6% of the population. Those guys with Audi and Mercedes-Benz and BMWs and so on. 6% of the population. And therefore, that is almost, as Katrina said, insignificant. So to say gasoline has gone up is not correct. In a real sense. Goods and services, for example, that wouldn't be affected. Transportation wouldn't be affected.
Because initial phase of a spiral effect.
There's going to be no roll-down effect on that.
That's right. And you see, to take Catherine's point, that it has to be a gradual process. Until they put CNG in train and give people the alternative gas to use, then you can't just overnight say whoop and you move it.
Now, Minister, I know you have to make a detailed presentation. Crime has been one of the concerns that the business community has expressed their frustrations over, saying that it's stymieing activity, it's affecting every element of life in the country. Your ministry now has huge expectations. What are some of the things that you intend to do differently to your predecessor, and also measuring the effectiveness of some of the programs that have been put in place?
Well, the first thing I want to tell you is that today is day 23. And you have not had a murder nor a shot in Laventille. This was the sore point. And it means that we are doing something that is correct, that is right, that is working. And you'll see that I've been walking through the areas, meeting people, getting their grievances, because to address crime, it is much more than policing and handcuffs and so on. You have to go to get the causes of crime and try to address them. The housing factors, the unemployment, and so on, the poverty that's taking place. All these are factors. Those are being addressed. But side by side with that, we are also building police stations. We are putting up coastal guards. We are seeing about interceptors. We are having joint army police patrols. We are going to precept 1,000 soldiers. We have given special reserve police officers the kind of respect and dignity they deserve in terms of giving them the same $1,000 tax relief as other police. So all these things are initiatives taking place. And I said I will announce much more in the days and weeks ahead. So it's working. And I want to say thanks to the government and Mr. Basad Bises and Mr. Hawaii for the kind of trust they have placed in the Ministry of National Security and the kind of expectations which they have placed in us. It's up to us now to live up to those expectations. And Catherine, by the way, you don't have cause to worry. As far as business is concerned, we shall deliver. And let me say, I know I'm talking too much here, but one more thing I want to say. This tax relief on CCTVs,
yes.
I mean, that is absolutely superb.
Right.
Yes.
It's absolutely superb.
That is a measure we support fully.
Absolutely
because
superb.
That's what we need to do. And I was glad that the measure is not just for business, but also for residential.
Everybody.
Because everyone now can, expenditure on security and security cameras, all that is a high cost.
Areas of growth and development, the government is projecting a 1.2 to about 1.5%. They've actually narrowed it down to about 1.2%.
Yeah.
Realistic, unrealistic, where is this growth going to come from?
Well, that's 1.2% for this year and in September 2012. So, I mean, pretty much we have ended 2012 already. So those are numbers that I think would be based on real, statistics that are out there. Is the growth that he's projecting for the following years to allow him eventually to come out of the deficit financing and deficit budget. So that growth, I think, is going to come from the stimulation that he has mentioned, and of heavy prominence in the budget was the involvement of private sector in achieving a lot of what they want to achieve, and using their public-private partnership model. So if you notice throughout the budget, there's been a lot of talk about the infrastructure that is needed for making the ease of doing business a lot easier, for helping business to do business easier. And a lot of that infrastructure is going to be costly, and he's hoping that he will work with the private sector on that. I must say the private sector is willing, and we have been saying to the government for a while now, yes, you need to get out of doing things like that. You be the one who put the infrastructure in place, put the policy in place, and let us run the businesses. We can do this a lot better than the government can, we believe.
But the private sector has always been accused of being very hesitant of doing that, of taking that lead. It's not the first time that we've seen the initiatives or seen announcements about public sector, private sector partnerships. What makes this announcement different to last year and the year before?
All right, and that may be part of our criticism also on the budget, in that some of the things that were mentioned this year were mentioned last year. And again, as I had said in other programs when I was on, we need a sense of full accountability in the budget. I would give Minister Hawaii some credit in that there was some level of accountability. It's only 3 months he has been in the job. And I think we needed a lot more accountability with respect to the measures that were mentioned last year and where we are with them. But I would say probably it's the first time we've seen in a budget document where there were a few measures with what in private sector we call smart objectives, whereby we can hold someone accountable. Minister right here, when we told him already we're going to be holding him accountable in the 6 months he's coming back and talk to us, 50% reduction in violent crimes, right? So we are holding you to that.
And I'm heading there. I'm heading
right. In 3 years' time,
yeah?
So, I mean, that's what you call a smart objective. How much he wants to reduce it by, and by when, so we can hold him accountable to that.
Minister, I have to ask you, yesterday in the budget presentation, the allocation to Tobago is quite large.
Yes.
Some will say that it's an election gimmick for THA elections.
Well, no, it's consistent with what the Constitution says. 4% of the budget goes to Tobago, and they got roughly 4%. But what I think is more important for Tobago is the fact that this is the first time a government, and not a PM government, a government has promised to table in Parliament a bill for internal self-government. And I want to say again, the Prime Minister was quite right to remind the opposition that calls for special majority, which they have said they would not support in this particular term. So therefore, okay, but if I were to begin this morning, and I woke up to hear a government say, we shall table in Parliament a bill for internal self-government, the money would have been meaningless, and that would have been more meaningful. I think that's what's important.
But some could also say that was playing politics a little bit with the opposition.
But after all, this is a play politics. This has gone on for decades. This has been asked for by Tobagonians for as long as I can remember, for more than 10 years. Ask yourself why when a PM government was there with a PM THA, why they never received it. That's what you have to ask yourself.
Also looking at accountability and transparency, emphasis on housing, construction also remains high on the agenda, but yet the procurement legislation is still outstanding, and some are concerned that we run the risk of balancing the need to stimulate the economy and that of kind of not going with policy and not making sure everything is above board.
Well, you know, that's a serious issue that we need to address, the legislation and the policy that needs to be in place for a lot of what is in this budget document to really happen, right? I mean, even come back to the PPP, if we don't have proper procurement legislation in place, then you're going to be forever having a discussion. You know, was it fair, was it open, was it transparent in the contracts that were awarded? So we definitely want to see the procurement legislation in place. I know the minister has the Parliament has a heavy burden for the next quarter with all the financial institutions and the SIA and all the different financial legislation that has to be passed. But procurement is a necessity, and I want to see that on within the next quarter.
But no one can deny, Catherine, that the government has been working assiduously to make this possible. And we have had our Joint Select Committee has been driven by Dr. Botiwari, and we have had several discussions on this. At one time, it had been stymied by the opposition. Even when that happened, we still went to work apace, and we are now on the threshold of bringing something to Parliament. So we are working assiduously. Again, I want to say to you this morning, which no previous government has ever done.
So we're going to see that in this quarter?
I don't know if it's this quarter, but no, we shall see that. We shall see that.
We want to see it in this quarter.
Look at timelines.
I will time myself down.
Yes.
So how would you defend the government with that, Minister Warner? Some are saying that while they expected that Minister Hawaii would deliver, you know, a good budget, they wanted to see more accountability from the government.
Well,
more of the projects. Where are we going?
I think Mr. Hawaii himself, he is accountability personified. I mean, if you know Mr. Hawaii and the sector that he came from, the banking sector, you will automatically understand that he represents accountability. You don't get funds from the Ministry of Finance until you account for it. But that apart, I want to again say that the procurement legislation is being worked upon and shall be delivered. And this shall be the epitome of accountability.
Productivity, competitiveness, fixing the economy. Do you think we're any closer to doing that? Almost 80% of all of the projects formulated and announced are not implemented.
Yes.
What is going to make this year different?
And that's quite true. And I think that is brought across clearly by year after year. We come with a deficit budget. And at the end of the year, we realize there probably is still a surplus. This year, we may just have a very, very small deficit, certainly not the $7 billion that was projected. And it's because a lot of the programs mentioned in the budget, particularly the PSIP, is not spent and doesn't happen.
But this year,
so we have to question whether there's a capacity to do it. And that says, it comes back again to the PPP model, because I don't think there's a capacity in government to do it. So we need to bring private sector in to get some of those projects off and make sure that we have the environment for businesses to operate the way they would like to operate. The ease of doing business, the minister mentioned that, right? Competitiveness. Those are some areas that we are nowhere where we should be. And it hurts me when I sit as Trinidad and Tobago and I see little Barbados ahead of us in any of these indices, right? So the minister did mention some of the things he was going to do in that. That's one of the things we had also in our budget submissions. And we look forward to see that he will implement some of the things he said. ASECUDA and SCW talking and interfacing with each other has been a bugbear for a while. We're glad that a decision has been made on that, and I really give credit to Minister Basan Barat for getting us to that point now, and we look forward to working with them in implementing this.
Food prices.
I want to say that, to Catherine, that this year, last fiscal year, in fact, the government spent 95% of PSIP. Again, unprecedented, Catherine, 95% of PSIP.
Mr. Warner, then look at where are these projects, what are these projects going to do, who is it impacting, and the overall benefits?
But you have to bear in mind that we inherited a system, and you will agree with me, I'm quite sure, where bureaucracy is a heavy burden. Now, bureaucracy is part of the accountability, so you have to accept that. But bureaucracy is a heavy burden. And we have to find ways and means to reduce this. And that is why Mr. Barrett, I commended him very highly in the cabinet. Mr. Barrett, I mean, he took on a system to make business here more competitive, and therefore what took 42 days, for example, to open business is now 3 days.
Yeah.
It's now 3 days. Again, unprecedented. And those are the things that should give this country hope.
We now take a very, very short break. When we come back, we're going to continue the discussion for a little bit, and then after that, we're going to be speaking with other senior officials in the business community, their thoughts on the budget that was presented yesterday. Minister Hawaii, great expectations. Can he deliver, and will this budget deliver and be different from those before? Stay with us.